Hello guys and welcome back to the Pulse Social Sports podcast. This week we have a very special guest, Baily Wright, Australian international footballer and player for Sunderland at the moment.
I am a proud Australian, grew up in Australia, moved over to the UK at 16 years old. So all my family are in Australia, in Melbourne, and I've been in the UK now, 12 years. So professional footballer now at Sunderland Football Club, which I absolutely love and I'm grateful for what I do. I've been here, this is my first full season at the club. Also have represented my country on many occasions, which is also a very proud achievement for myself. It's something I hope to get more of a taste of. And yeah, I'm 28 years old now, loving what I do. Soon to be a father, which I can't wait. And like everyone, can't wait to get out of this lockdown.
No, absolutely. And just jumping back to your youth a little bit, how did you first get involved with playing football in the sport, I assume in Australia?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to live on the same road as my local soccer club. I call it soccer because that's what I grew up calling it. And I could just walk to the football fields. I think it was my mum that took me to my first ever training session at my local team, Langwarrin Soccer Club, which I still support now. And whenever I get the opportunity to go home, I go and watch them when I can. Still got a lot of good friends and good people at that club. So I was fortunate. My dad's football mad, absolutely loves it. Played when he was younger, and was a good player as well. And he's always been a massive support and motivator for me to enjoy my football, but to support me in everything I do. My mum and my dad and my family. So yeah, my upbringing there was a lot of local football. I played for a number of clubs. Started off at Langwarrin, went to another local team, Mornington, for one season. I started playing men's football when I was 13 years old at Dandenong, which you won't know any of these teams, but to me, great memories there with them. And I was fortunate enough to represent, make some representative teams from the age of sort of 15. My Victorian state team, I made the Victorian Institute of Sport, which, doesn't run a football program, but back then it was, brilliant. The closest thing you could get to an elite professional environment at that age. And then, represented Australia under 17s and eventually had some trials in the UK. Fortunate for me, my trial at Preston North End went really well, and I moved over to England at 16.
No, absolutely. And then obviously your professional career in the EFL started off, obviously, like you said, in Preston North End. Why did you choose to move from Australia to the UK to continue to play football?
Yeah, it's a good question. I loved everything about England, and I still do. It was always my dream to play professionally in England. Growing up, I was a Leeds fan because Harry Kewell and Mark Viduka. And I just loved everything about England and football. It was like this magical world that I just wanted to experience one day. And I guess at the age of 15, 16 in Australia, opportunities for myself were quite limited. We had the A-League, which I think it had about 10 teams in it, professional teams. And at the age of 15, 16, that only just started, implementing a reserve league within the A-League. So, and I'll be honest, I think for what I could have got paid, it would have cost me more to actually get to training if I had been selected for one of those teams. When you sort of get to that age, I'd like to say I had a sort of old head on my shoulders where I thought, if I've got to really consider whether football's for me or I go down a different path. And I'd actually left school. I was working with my old man in his business in drainage and construction, and a business that's been really successful for him. And, I was sort of doing my apprenticeship sort of call with him. And, I thought about not packing in football completely, but just playing for fun. When I say play for fun, I do play for fun, but literally, scrap the level that I feel I could play at and want to make an absolute career out of it, but just play locally. And it sort of come about discussions with my mum and dad, and they said, look, do you want to have an opportunity to, give it a shot over in the UK and get some trials if we can organise some? It was crazy. And yeah, my mum and dad fired off some emails to some scouts. We had some contacts. I'd been playing in Australia's under-17s, and some at a good level for my age for sure, which helps. Helps get your foot in the door.
Mm.
So I got the trials. I got a trial actually around Christmas in 2008. It was at Blackburn Rovers and Preston North End. Out of the two trials, Blackburn didn't work out, and fortunately for myself, a couple of gentlemen, Jamie Hoyland, someone who's had a massive impact on my career. He was a youth team manager. Dean Ramsdale was the assistant youth team manager, and Nick Harrison, who was one of the youth team coaches and is now actually the youth team manager at Preston. But it was mainly Jamie that saw something in me and gave me a chance. I had, an hour's training session with Preston, and he'd offered me, they wanted to sign me. And for me, I just remember like walking out of his office after my training session with him, ready to jump on a plane back to Australia, I think the next day, to get home for Christmas Day, and just thinking, I've just been offered a contract, an apprenticeship contract to play in England. Like, this is unbelievable.
Mm.
Like, me and my dad were just gobsmacked. My dad came over with me, and the rest of my family had stayed in Australia because it was difficult. And yeah, so I went back to Australia and moved to the UK 6 months later. Had a few difficulties actually getting my clearance to play in England, which was a bit of a frustration at the time, which was, God knows what actually happened behind the scenes, but things getting held back on the Australian end. And all I wanted to do was just go live the dream and play football in England. And I got the opportunity. If I didn't get that opportunity, I don't think I would have, I won't be playing football professionally. And it's funny how things work out. It wasn't because I was giving up on my dream. I was quite realistic with, I loved my football, but if it wasn't going to be, I had to, prepare myself for my next career. And I wanted England more than anything. And when I got that opportunity, I was going to make sure I wasn't going to let it go to waste. And I like to think I've, grabbed it with two hands since I moved to the UK.
No, absolutely. Completely see the merit in that. And it's just really interesting to hear people coming to the UK and just loving everything about the country. And whilst you were playing for Preston North End, they got promoted from League One to the Championship. Can you tell me what it was like seeing your club move up a league and to be a part of that?
Yeah, it was, I still call Preston a bit of it's like home for me in the UK in many respects. I met some great people within the club, outside the club. Mick and Joan, who I like to call my English parents, were, people who basically raised me in England. We all lived in a house, we called it digs, 19 lads, I think it was, living in one house. It was carnage, but we was just like living the dream. It was playing football, like, they fed us, do you know what I mean? Like, we had to make our own way to training, and like everything was just like, this is what you're doing. Like, this is unbelievable. So I had a real connection with the club because, people like Mick and Joan were Preston North End mad and great people. The club would give me an opportunity. I'd experienced relegation with the club in my first couple of years. I was still really young, but I saw what it meant to people and the impact it had on, the town, people's jobs, everything. And it sort of hit you with the responsibilities of, doing your best for the badge. And I had many good years at Preston, great years. But the highlight for sure was winning at Wembley and getting promoted back in the Championship, because you saw what it meant to people. You felt it. I was a fan myself. I still follow the club now. Still speak to people there. I've still got fond memories and an attachment to the club. I spent 8 years there, played a lot of games, had good achievements at youth team, reserve team and first team level. So yeah, to be able to get promoted with the club and break the club's hoodoo for, they had a bad record at Wembley, which we were reminded of many times leading up to it. But just made you more determined to put things right. And, I had my family there. My wife, my family come over from Australia, my mum and dad. I had a number of people there, my wife's family. It was just nice to share that moment with everyone, and see smiles on fans' faces, and at least get the club back to, at least a league that they deserve to be in, at least.
No, definitely. And then obviously you mentioned Wembley, so I'm assuming that's via the playoffs.
Yeah, playoff final. So it was actually a bit of a mad one. Last game of the season, we just had to draw or win
Mm.
against Colchester away to finish second and, automatic promotion spot. Colchester had to win to stay in the league. I guess that motivating drive there happened to be a bit stronger than ours on the day, and they beat us, and deservedly so on the day. But looking back at it, I wouldn't change that for anything, because winning the playoffs was special. We were 3-0 up at half time at Wembley, and it was just, the game went so quick, because you're just so in the moment and so focused, and so determined to get the result. But yeah, it's pretty special playing at Wembley and winning at Wembley.
Mm. If you don't mind me slipping it in there, which teams did you have to play to get to Wembley and then win at Wembley in the playoff rounds?
Yeah. So the semi-finals were home and away, against Chesterfield.
Mm.
I think, we didn't concede a goal in either semi-final or concede a goal in the final. So we kind of cruised it, really. We had a good squad, good group of players that, we had a real togetherness. And when you feel like a culture and buzz like that, you're onto something good. So yeah, we beat Chesterfield, and then in the final, we played Swindon, who'd had a great season,
Mm.
played some really good football. Probably one of the best brands and styles of football that I've sort of seen from a League One team still now. And a lot of those players actually got moves from there, and it was a tough game, even though we won 4-0. They're a good side. We just had Jermaine Beckford on fire up top, and when it was his day, it was his day. Him and Joe Garner that season were just absolutely on fire for us, and made us, jobs as defenders easy, because you just know they'd score.
No, definitely. It's always thrilling to watch. I mean, from an outsider's perspective, it's always thrilling to watch a team make their way through the playoffs, and you kind of think, oh, this is building somewhere. So it's just really interesting to hear an inside perspective. And if I'm correct in saying, you study at University of East London, don't you?
I do, yeah. Yep.
So if you don't mind me asking, what's it like studying whilst balancing kind of balancing a studying career and a professional playing career as well?
Yeah, it's what I look back on it. Something I wish I probably started earlier whilst playing, because I think it's good to have other interests outside of football and other focuses. Whilst I'm absolutely passionate and love football, what I'm studying is obviously it's a MSc in sports directorship, because I know football career is short, and whatever I do next, I'm one of those people that I know I like to be busy. Whenever my playing career ends, and I still hope to have a long playing career, but
Mm.
when it does come to an end, I want to transition straight away and into what will be my next chapter and my next journey. And that's to stay involved in sport in some capacity. Whether that, obviously a sporting director role sounds great to me. But I know it's a tough journey to get a job like that. And, a lot of hard work's got to go into it. But this is sort of a start of a journey for me. I think it makes me better understand myself, what drives me, and sort of makes me a better player in some regards, because I'm learning, switching off from football sometimes when it needs to be.
Mm.
And in terms of like the balancing side of things, sometimes it's tough, because, football's first, family first, football second, third uni for myself.
Mm.
And it sort of takes in that order. So sometimes it's difficult to balance them, but, not too difficult that it can't be done. You just got to manage your time well. But I enjoy it. And I think if you enjoy it and you're passionate about learning, it makes it easy. So, a lot of it's, afternoons, or a day off or a Sunday, just reading and learning and doing assignments and tuning into some of the stuff that you've been taught or want to learn more about, and just going on your own little path and and digging deeper into things. So um, I look back on it. I wasn't really an academic person, or I enjoyed school. I was good at school, but I didn't like. I just wanted to be a footballer or go down and be an apprentice, or whatever route it might have taken. That was my avenue when I was younger, which was fine because I was a motivated individual, and anything I did, I worked hard at. But looking back on it, do I wish I worked a bit harder in school? Easy to say that now, but the beauty of it is you're never too old to study and improve yourself. You should always improve yourself, regardless of what age you are. Learning is addictive, and you start to get a better knowledge of something. You feel, I don't know, just you feel better about yourself, that you have an understanding and improving yourself. And I think that's important. So the beauty of learning is you can start whenever you want. Sometimes it's better to start earlier, but the most important thing is that you eventually recognize it. And I have, but so far it's been brilliant. The balance has been easy enough. It's thrown its challenges, thrown me out of my comfort zone, which is exactly why I wanted to do it.
No, definitely, absolutely. It's just really interesting to kind of see this kind of sport and study aspect kind of come together, and how different people bounce between the two, etc. And if you don't mind me asking, because now you're playing with Sunderland, which is
Yep.
yeah. How would you say that COVID and lockdown affected the team being able to train as a team?
Yeah. Obviously, the first lockdown 0.10, which shocked us all. It threw its challenges at everyone and the unknown, which I think everyone in the world experienced, not just football. From a personal point of view, it was a tricky time for myself. I'd actually just had an operation on my ankle, quite a decent operation, and we went into lockdown. So I couldn't see any physios, doctors, no one. It was rehab from home. I was originally on loan at Sunderland from Bristol City,
Yeah,
previous club, which when lockdown happened, I moved back to Bristol and did my rehab from home. I spoke to physios, but a lot of staff were furloughed, and in the end, there was no one to work with. I had a physio at Bristol City that worked with me and gave me some programs to do from home, which he was brilliant. All the physios that could help up until they were furloughed helped, obviously. And a lot of it was just trial and error. And I had a lot of time to get myself fit because of the lockdown. So that threw its challenges, but it made me stronger mentally, physically. Training from home and having to rely on yourself teaches you that, if you can rely on yourself and don't have to worry about anyone else, get the best of yourself, then you can handle anything. So as a team, it was difficult because all our training was runs by yourself, and having to keep yourself motivated, not knowing what the next steps were or plans were when football would start again, what team you'd be playing for. But fortunately for me, I signed permanently for Sunderland in August and started pre-season. First few days of pre-season were in small groups. We could eventually, following government guidelines, training larger groups. But still now we follow protocols. When we're ever inside the building, it's in much smaller groups and distancing. And, for team morale, you can't hang around the training ground too much and socialize because it's not encouraged so much. Can't go out and have a team building session or whatever. It's just, they're the challenges it faces. But no, I guess we're fortunate enough that our industry's ploughed through and we've been able to keep playing. We're in a little bit of a bubble, I guess, that I feel for some people that don't leave their houses and, working from home. And, there's a lot worse things off in the world than that, of course. But, we get to go in and work and exercise and, and train and run around and chase a ball full of air. So that's something that I always love doing, and fortunate that we've been able to continue on. We've missed fans, of course. We've missed that buzz and atmosphere. I mean, we said that we should get used to it, but I don't think anyone ever wants to get used to not having fans in there. And it's just not the same. Whether it's abuse or a cheer, whatever it is, it creates something in you that drives you on. And I think we all miss that.
No, absolutely. I know what you mean. Just from kind of watching the games on the telly, you can, because they've been putting the noise on in the background. Are you hearing the noise out of curiosity?
What, when we're playing?
Yeah.
No, they don't play it in the stadium. It's just like edited on the TV. Yeah, so the stadium's just bare. All you hear is an echo. Just every shout and everything from just each other. There's nothing in the tannoy system at all.
And if you don't mind me asking as well, about the big one, if you like, what was it like being called up for the national Australian team to go on to play in Brazil in the 2014 World Cup?
Yeah, it was, to be honest, quite unexpected for myself. I'd not been called up to a national team before. I knew I was in with a slight chance. I originally called into the 30-man squad and thought, oh, brilliant, this is my foot in the door, announce myself and see what comes of it. I didn't expect to go to the World Cup. But fortunately, the way it worked out, and, I hate to say it, but sometimes when, I feel for lads who get injured in football. I do. We've all been there, and it's a horrible thing to go through. But sometimes it's how, other people get their opportunities. And I guess I was kind of lucky in that regard. But I made sure I was ready and fully committed myself and trained hard and, wanted to make sure I was at the level. And fortunately enough, I got to experience, sorry, my dogs have just come underneath.
That's quite all right.
Got to experience a World Cup, which, I still pinch myself now thinking like I was at the World Cup in Brazil. Brazil, like the home of football. It was just incredible. I didn't get on the pitch. I was on the bench for every game. But it was nonetheless an unbelievable experience and something that made me hungrier for more, and sort of inspired me to go on and take my career on and really kick on. And yeah, obviously since then, I've accumulated a lot more caps, and still have ambitions of going to a World Cup and actually playing, and being part of something special for Australian football. I feel like we're on the path of, improving the game and doing something special. And, for me, that's always the driving force. But, to have had that taste then, it was a little bit, I was surprised. But in many ways I deserved it. I put a lot of hard work to get that opportunity, to make sure I was ready. I was gutted for, some people at the time who I didn't know, and some that I know now that missed out on that World Cup. It's all part of the journey. We all go through these obstacles and hurdles. It's, all part of the game.
No, absolutely. And it must have been fantastic to just be there, and I can fully appreciate it.
It was. Do you know what one of the most incredible experiences was? And when it sort of hit me, I felt like I was at a World Cup. We had a base in Vitória in Brazil, and we had our first game. We flew to another city in Brazil. So the night we flew, got to the hotel, having food, having our dinner, and the first game of the World Cup's about to kick off. Brazil, can't remember who they were playing now. I should remember this, but first game's about to kick off, and we're all like, have our dinner. We go back to like the social room or our rooms and watch the first game of the World Cup. And the city, I can't even remember the name of the city we were in. That was just such a blur, everything. And it was a big city. You look out the window and there wasn't a single soul in their cars or walking on these streets in a big city. It was weird. And then World Cup kicks off. We're all in our rooms watching it, and Brazil score. And next minute, mate, you can hear like party mode, and you're like, fireworks going off. You open your curtains, and there's just people driving down the road, their cars, Brazil shirts flinging about, people out everywhere, like going mental. And I'm getting goosebumps now. And I was just like, Jesus, this is Brazil. We're in the heart of football at a World Cup. And it's like, that's when I was like, whoa, this is incredible.
That sounds absolutely phenomenal, and just such a scene to be around.
Yeah, it was.
I just wanted to again say a massive thanks for taking your time and speaking to us. It's been such an honour.
No worries, mate. Happy to help. Hopefully, all goes well the rest of studies. If there's anything you need.
That's all we've got time for this week. We always want to thank Baily for coming on the show with us, and we want to thank everyone out there as well. For more content like this, please like and subscribe to our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn or our YouTube at Social CIC. That's all we've got time for. See you next week.